My hands trembled as I read the email. I had to get there first. The taxi's headlights cut through the rain like dull knives, barely illuminating the road ahead. I checked my watch. 11:23 p.m. My flight had been delayed 3 hours. 3 hours that I couldn't afford to lose. "Can you go any faster?" I asked the driver, my voice cracking. He glanced at me in the rearview mirror, his eyes tired. "Lady, it's pouring out there." "I'm going as fast as I safely can." I nodded, sinking back into the seat. The email was still open on my phone, its words burning into my retinas even when I closed my eyes. Room 1619, the Grand Meridian Hotel, booked for real love, tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Below that, a single line that shattered everything. "I'll be there, Vanessa. This time for real." Daniel, my husband of 12 years. The father of our daughter. The man who'd promised to love only me but had been living a double life for God knows how long. I'd found the email while using his laptop. He'd forgotten to log out of his account, a careless mistake from a typically meticulous man. There were hundreds of messages between them. Her name was Eliza. They'd been seeing each other for almost a year. The taxi slowed to a stop outside the Grand Meridian. I threw a handful of bills at the driver and stepped out into the downpour, not bothering with an umbrella. My hair was plastered to my face by the time I pushed through the revolving doors, but I didn't care. The lobby gleamed with marble and crystal chandeliers, a stark contrast to the storm outside. I approached the front desk, forcing my breathing to steady. "Good evening," said the receptionist, a young man with a practiced smile. "Welcome to the Grand Meridian. How may I help you?" "I need to check in. I have a reservation for tomorrow, but I'd like to arrive early." Room 1619. The lie rolled off my tongue with surprising ease. His fingers tapped at the keyboard. "I'm sorry, but I don't see your name on the reservation for that room." "It might be under Daniel Whitaker," I said, swallowing hard. "My husband," more typing. Then, yes. "I do see Mr. Whitaker's reservation for tomorrow evening." He looked up, apologetic. "However, the room is currently occupied by another guest who isn't checking out until tomorrow afternoon." My heart sank. "I see. Is there any way I could get a different room for tonight? Preferably on the same floor?" 10 minutes later, I was riding the elevator to the 16th floor with a keycard to room 1621, directly across from 1619. As the elevator climbed, I replayed the conversation I'd had with Daniel that morning. "I have to go to Boston for a conference," he'd said over breakfast, not quite meeting my eyes. "I'll be back Sunday night." "That's the third conference this year," I'd remarked, watching him closely. He'd shrugged, sipping his coffee. "The pharmaceutical industry never sleeps." I'd noticed the new cologne, the gym membership, the late nights at the office. The classic signs, but I'd convinced myself I was being paranoid. That Daniel, steady, reliable Daniel who color-coded his sock drawer and made pancakes every Sunday, couldn't possibly be having an affair. The elevator doors opened. I walked down the hushed corridor, my wheeled suitcase suddenly feeling like it weighed 1,000 pounds. I found room 1621 and let myself in. The room was elegant but impersonal, like all hotel rooms. I placed my suitcase on the luggage rack and went to the window. The city lights blurred in the rain, reflecting my own distorted image back at me. I was 43 years old. Not young anymore, but not old either. My once black hair now had strands of silver that I'd stopped dyeing after my mother died last year. Daniel had said he liked it. Said it made me look distinguished. Wise. What wisdom had I shown, though? I hadn't seen this coming. Or maybe I had, and I'd ignored it. I took out my phone and scrolled through the emails I'd forwarded to myself from Daniel's account. Their correspondence was like a punch to the gut. Not just the explicit messages, though there were plenty of those, but the intimate ones. The ones where they discussed books and movies, where he sent her photos of interesting cloud formations, where he told her about his dreams. He'd stopped telling me his dreams years ago. There was one email that hurt more than all the others combined. "When I'm with you, I feel like myself." Not the version I've become over the years. The real me. the one who got buried somewhere along the way. You give me that. Real love, real love. As if what we had wasn't real. As if our life together, the mortgage payments and parent-teacher conferences and Christmas mornings, was all just play acting. I sat on the edge of the bed and did something I hadn't done in a long time. I cried. Not the quiet tears I'd allowed myself in the shower sometimes, but deep, body-shaking sobs that left me gasping for air. When I finally stopped, my head was pounding and my throat was raw. I went to the bathroom and splashed cold water on my face, avoiding my reflection. I had 22 hours until they were supposed to meet. 22 hours to decide what I was going to do. I must have fallen asleep at some point, because I woke to sunlight filtering through the curtains I'd forgotten to close. For a blissful moment, I didn't remember why I was in a hotel room. Then it all came flooding back. I ordered room service, coffee and toast I couldn't eat, and tried to think rationally. I could confront Daniel now, call him and tell him I knew everything. But then what? He'd apologize, promise it was over, and I'd never know if he really ended it or just got better at hiding it. No, I needed to see them together. Needed to witness what real love looked like. I showered and dressed in clothes from my suitcase, jeans and a sweater I'd packed without much thought. Then I called the front desk. Good morning. I was wondering if you could tell me when the current guests in room 1619 are checking out. Let me check for you. They're scheduled to check out at noon today, ma'am. Perfect. That would give housekeeping time to clean the room before Daniel checked in, presumably sometime in the late afternoon before his 9 p.m. rendezvous. I left my room and took the elevator to the lobby. The rain had stopped, leaving the city washed clean and gleaming. I walked aimlessly for a while, ending up in a small park where I sat on a bench and watched children play. One little girl reminded me of Lily, our daughter, when she was younger. Lily was 17 now, in her senior year of high school, already talking about colleges across the country. She was spending the weekend at her friend Emma's house, working on a science project. At least that's what she'd told us. I wondered if she lied to us as easily as her father lied to me. I pulled out my phone and called her. Mom? She answered, sounding surprised. Everything okay? Everything's fine, I said, trying to sound normal. Just checking in. How's the project going? Good. We're almost done. Emma's mom made us her famous lasagna last night. She paused. Where's Dad? I tried calling him, but it went straight to voicemail. My heart clenched. He's at a conference in Boston, remember? Oh, right. I forgot. We chatted for a few more minutes about nothing important, and then she had to go. I sat there for a long time after hanging up, wondering how this would affect her. If the carefully constructed world of her childhood was about to crumble around her. Around noon, I returned to the hotel. I hovered near the elevators, watching the comings and goings in the lobby. At 12:15, I saw a middle-aged couple emerge from the elevator with their luggage. They checked out, and I slipped into the elevator, pressing the button for the 16th floor. The corridor was empty. I walked past room 1619, noticing the Please Make Up Room sign hanging on the doorknob. I continued to my own room, where I spent the next few hours alternating between pacing and sitting perfectly still, staring at nothing. At 3:30 p.m., I heard activity in the hallway. Peering through the peephole of my door, I saw a housekeeping cart outside room 1619. I waited until the housekeeper left, then another hour to be safe. At 4:45 p.m., I put my plan into action. I'd decided that I needed to get into room 1619 before Daniel arrived. I needed to see the room where he was planning to betray me. Maybe I'd wait there, confront them both when they arrived. Maybe I'd just leave evidence that I knew. My wedding ring on the pillow, perhaps. I hadn't decided yet. I approached the housekeeping staff room on the ground floor and knocked confidently. Hi, I'm from room 1621, I told the supervisor who answered. I accidentally locked myself out while getting ice. Could I get a new key? She looked at me skeptically. We'll need to see some ID, ma'am. Of course, I said, pulling out my driver's license. I'm Vanessa Whitaker. She checked her computer. Room 1621 is registered to a Vanessa Whitaker. I'll make you a new key. As she turned to the key-making machine, I added casually, "Actually, my husband is checking into room 1619 later today. Could I possibly get a key for that room as well? I'd like to surprise him." She hesitated, then nodded. "Since it's registered under the same last name, that should be fine. Mr. Daniel Whitaker, correct?" My throat tightened. "That's right." 5 minutes later, I was back on the 16th floor with keycards to both rooms. I stood outside room 1619 for a long moment, my heart pounding. Then I inserted the keycard and pushed the door open. The room was identical to mine in layout, but mirrored. King-size bed, desk by the window, armchair in the corner. The housekeeping. Staff had done their job well. Everything was pristine, impersonal, waiting to be marked by new occupants. I sat on the edge of the bed, running my hand over the smooth comforter. Had he been in rooms like this with her before? How many times had he lied to me, to Lily? The clock on the bedside table read 5:17 p.m. Daniel had told me his flight to Boston was at 2 p.m. Assuming he wasn't actually going to Boston at all, he could be checking in any time now. I had to decide what to do. Wait here and confront them? Leave and watch from across the hall? Set up my phone to record them? In the end, the decision was made for me. I heard the electronic whir of the door lock. Someone was using a key card. Panicking, I dashed into the bathroom and closed the door most of the way, leaving just a sliver to see through. The hotel room door opened. It was Daniel. He was alone, pulling a small suitcase behind him. He looked exactly as he always did, tall and lean, his dark hair starting to gray at the temples, his face thoughtful. He could have been arriving at any normal business trip, except this wasn't normal at all. I watched as he placed his suitcase on the luggage rack and hung his jacket in the closet. He moved around the room with the efficiency of someone used to hotels, unpacking his toiletries in the bathroom. I pressed myself against the wall, holding my breath as he came in, but he didn't notice the door was ajar, checking the minibar, adjusting the thermostat. Then he did something odd. He took out a small paper bag from his suitcase and removed what looked like a candle. He placed it on the desk and lit it. The scent of sandalwood filled the room, Eliza's favorite, according to one of their emails. He checked his watch, then pulled out his phone and made a call. "Hey, it's me," he said, his voice soft. "I'm here. Yeah, everything's set. 9 o'clock, right? I can't wait to see you either." He ended the call and sat on the bed, staring at his phone for a long moment. Then he got up and went into the bathroom. This was my chance. I slipped out from behind the door while his back was turned and darted across the room. I was almost at the door when I heard him call out, "Who's there?" I froze, my hand on the doorknob. Slowly, I turned around. Daniel stood in the bathroom doorway, his face draining of color as he recognized me. "Vanessa?" he whispered. "What are you? How did you—" "I read your emails," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "All of them. You and Eliza. Real love, right?" He seemed to age 10 years in an instant, his shoulders slumping, his face crumpling. "Van, I can explain." "Don't," I cut him off. "Don't you dare try to explain how you've been fucking someone else for a year while lying to my face every day." He flinched at my words. "It's not like that." "Then what is it like, Daniel? Please, enlighten me." He moved to sit on the edge of the bed, running his hands through his hair. "I never meant to hurt you." I laughed, a harsh sound that didn't sound like me at all. "Well, mission failed spectacularly. Vanessa, please. Can we talk about this? Really talk? Now you want to talk? After months of lies? After booking a romantic hotel room for you and your girlfriend?" I gestured around us. "What exactly is there to talk about?" He looked up at me, his eyes red-rimmed. "About us? About how we've been living like roommates for years. About how we stopped seeing each other a long time ago." His words hit me like physical blows. "So this is my fault?" "No," he said quickly. "No, it's not your fault. It's not anyone's fault. It just happened. We grew apart. You know we did. I did know. Somewhere deep down, beneath the anger and the hurt, I recognized the truth in what he was saying. We had grown apart. We'd stopped having real conversations years ago, defaulting to discussions about Lily's schedule or household chores or work complaints. But that didn't excuse what he'd done. If you were so unhappy, I said, you could have talked to me. You could have suggested counseling. You could have asked for a divorce. Instead, you chose to lie, to cheat. He nodded, accepting my words. You're right. I was a coward. I didn't want to hurt you, so I ended up hurting you worse. He paused. But I do love her, Vanessa. It's not just some tawdry affair. Those words, I do love her, felt like a knife twisting in my chest. How nice for you both, I said bitterly. I hope you'll be very happy together. I turned to leave, but he called after me. Wait, there's something else you should know. I paused, my hand on the doorknob again. What? Eliza isn't coming tonight. I turned back, confused. What do you mean? He sighed deeply. I ended things with her last week. This, he gestured around the room, was supposed to be our goodbye, a proper ending. I stared at him, trying to process this new information. You broke up with her? Why? Because I realized what I was throwing away. Our family, our history. He looked up at me, his eyes pleading. I was going to tell you everything after this weekend. Ask for your forgiveness. See if there was any chance we could try again. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. So you were going to sleep with her one last time for old time's sake, and then come crawling back to me? And I was supposed to be grateful? He winced. When you put it like that. How else should I put it, Daniel? You were still planning to lie to me for another 2 days, to sleep with another woman one more time before confessing. I know how it sounds, he said miserably. I know I've made a mess of everything. But I do love you, Vanessa. I always have. I shook my head, backing toward the door. I need to go. I can't be here right now. Where will you go? He asked. I don't know. Home, I guess. Someone should be there for Lily. He nodded slowly. I'll stay here tonight. Give you space. I opened the door, but before I could leave, my phone chimed with a text message. I glanced at it automatically. It was from a number I didn't recognize. I'm downstairs in the lobby. Room 1619, right? Can't wait to see you. EI. Looked up at Daniel, who seemed confused by my sudden stillness. What is it? He asked. I turned my phone so he could see the message. Seems like Eliza didn't get the memo about your breakup. His face went completely white. That's impossible. I told her it was over. We agreed this would be our last time together to say goodbye properly. Well, she's downstairs right now, I said, a strange calm coming over me. What are you going to do? He looked panicked. I don't know. I'll have to talk to her. Tell her again. Or, I said slowly, an idea forming, I could talk to her. Thichiu, Grand Meridian's lobby was busy with the evening check-in rush. I scanned the space, trying to pick out which woman might be Eliza. From the emails, I knew she was 36, with red hair and green eyes. Daniel's opposite in many ways. My opposite, too. I spotted her sitting in a plush chair near the bar, checking her watch. She was pretty in an understated way, wearing a simple black dress and minimal makeup. Her red hair was pulled back in a loose bun with strands framing her face. I approached her directly. Eliza? She looked up, startled. Yes? I'm Vanessa. Daniel's wife. Her face went through a rapid series of emotions. Shock, guilt, fear, and finally, a kind of resigned dignity. She straightened her shoulders. I see, she said quietly. I suppose we should talk. We moved to the hotel bar, sitting at a small table in the corner. A waiter came by and we both ordered whiskey. Neither of us spoke until the drinks arrived. How did you find out? She finally asked. I read your emails, I said. All of them. She nodded, taking a sip of her drink. I'm sorry. That sounds inadequate, but I am. Did you know he was married? That he has a daughter? Yes, she admitted. From the beginning. He never pretended otherwise. I felt a strange mix of emotions. Anger at this woman who had knowingly pursued a married man, but also a grudging respect for her honesty now. He told me he ended things with you, I said. She looked genuinely surprised. What? When? Last week, apparently. He said tonight was supposed to be your goodbye. She shook her head slowly. That's not true. He never said anything about ending our relationship. In fact, she hesitated. In fact, what? She reached into her purse and pulled out her phone. After scrolling for a moment, she handed it to me. This was from 3 days ago. The message on the screen was from Daniel. I've been thinking about our conversation. You're right. Life's too short. Let's do it. I'll tell Vanessa after the weekend. I felt the blood drain from my face. Do what, exactly? Eliza looked uncomfortable. We've been talking about him leaving you, getting a place together. The whiskey turned sour in my stomach. I see. For what it's worth, she said, he does care about you. He worried about how it would affect you. And Lily. I almost laughed at the absurdity of it all. This woman, my husband's lover, trying to assure me that he still cared. Did you know? I said. That last year when my mother was dying of cancer, Daniel came with me to every doctor's appointment? He held my hand at her funeral. He helped me sort through all her belongings afterward. I took a shaky breath. The whole time, was he texting you? Planning your next meeting? She looked down at her glass. Some of those times, yes. Why? I asked, the question that had been burning in me since I'd read the first email. Why Daniel? Why someone else's husband? She was quiet for a long moment. I lost my own husband 5 years ago. Car accident? After that, I didn't think I'd ever love again. She looked up at me. Daniel and I met at a pharmaceutical conference. I'm a research scientist. We just connected. It wasn't about the excitement of an affair or forbidden fruit or whatever people think. It was about finding someone who sees you, really sees you. Her words echoed Daniel's email. When I'm with you, I feel like myself. And you think you see the real Daniel? I asked. The man who lies to his wife? Who betrays his family? Who tells you he's ended things while telling me he's at a conference in Boston? She flinched. We're all complicated, aren't we? None of us is just one thing. We sat in silence for a minute, 2 women connected by the same man, trying to reconcile different versions of him. Finally, I said, He's upstairs. Room 1619. You should go talk to him. She looked surprised. You're not going back up? I shook my head. No, I've seen and heard enough for one night. She gathered her purse and stood. What will you do? It was a good question. One I didn't have an answer to yet. I don't know, I said honestly. But I deserve better than lies. We all do, she nodded, then hesitated. For what it's worth, I am sorry. As I watched her walk toward the elevators, I realized something strange. I wasn't as angry at her as I thought I'd be. She hadn't made vows to me. Daniel had. I finished my whiskey and ordered another. Then I pulled out my phone and called Lily. Mom? She answered. What's up? Nothing, I said, suddenly unsure why I'd called. Just wanted to hear your voice. Everything okay? You sound weird. I thought about lying, about saying everything was fine. But I was tired of lies. Actually, no. Everything's not okay. But it will be. I took a deep breath. Lily, when you get home tomorrow, we need to talk. All 3 of us. You're scaring me, Mom. Don't be scared. It's just, life gets complicated sometimes. But we'll figure it out. I promise. After we hung up, I sat in the bar for a long time, watching people come and go. Couples holding hands. Families with tired children. Business travelers alone with their laptops and drinks. I thought about Daniel and Eliza upstairs. What were they saying to each other? What decisions were they making? And I thought about what came next for me. Divorce, almost certainly. A new life I hadn't planned for. The pain of watching my daughter navigate her parents' separation. But beneath the fear and grief, I felt something else stirring. A kind of possibility, a chance to rediscover the woman I'd been before I became half of Daniel and Vanessa. Before I'd started, making myself smaller to accommodate his growing discontent. I paid for my drinks and walked to the front desk. I'd like to check out of room 1621, I told the receptionist, and leave a message for room 1619. Of course, she said, handing me a notepad. I thought carefully, then wrote, Daniel, I won't be at home when you get back. I'm going to stay with my sister for a while. I'll come by on Monday to get some of my things. We need to tell Lily together. She deserves that much from us. Take care of yourself. Vanessa. I handed the note to the receptionist, who promised to deliver it. Then I called my sister, Rachel, who lived an hour away. I told her everything in a rush of words, and she immediately insisted I come stay with her. For as long as you need, she said fiercely. We'll drink wine and curse men and figure out your next steps. I smiled, feeling a rush of gratitude for her. I'll be there in an hour or so. As I stepped out of the hotel into the cool night air, I felt lighter somehow. Not happy. I was far from happy, but unburdened of the weight of unknowing. Of suspicion and doubt, I had the truth now. It wasn't the truth I wanted, but it was real. And real was better than illusion. I hailed a taxi and gave the driver my sister's address. As the car pulled away from the Grand Meridian, I didn't look back at room 1619 and its promise of real love. My real life, whatever that would be now, was waiting ahead. 6 months later, the coffee shop was busy with the Saturday morning rush, but I'd managed to snag a small table by the window. I checked my watch, 10:52 a.m. He was late, as usual. I saw him before he saw me, weaving between tables with apologetic smiles to people whose chairs he bumped. Some things never changed. Sorry I'm late, Daniel said as he sat down across from me. Traffic was a nightmare. It's fine, I said. I haven't been waiting long. He studied me for a moment. You look good, Van. Really good. I nodded, accepting the compliment. Thanks. How's the new place? It's coming together. Still have some boxes to unpack. He paused. How's Lily doing with everything? It was the question that mattered most to both of us. Our daughter had taken the news of our separation hard. Anger, tears, blame that she distributed equally between us. The past few months had been a balancing act of giving her space while keeping her close, letting her feel her feelings while assuring her that none of this was her fault. Better, I said. She's talking to her therapist, which helps, and she's excited about visiting your place this weekend. I hesitated. She asked if Eliza would be there. Daniel shook his head. No, that's over, I raised an eyebrow. Since when? Since that night at the hotel, actually. He looked down at his hands. After you left, we had a long conversation about honesty, about what we really wanted. He met my eyes again. Turns out, when I finally told the truth, to both of you, to myself, there wasn't much left. I'm sorry, I said, and meant it. Despite everything, I didn't want Daniel to be unhappy. He shrugged. Don't be. It was never going to work. I think I knew that all along, which is why I kept putting off leaving. He gave me a sad smile. Easier to live in fantasy than reality. We sat in silence for a moment, the noise of the coffee shop flowing around us. It was strange how comfortable it felt, sitting with this man I'd shared so much with, whom I no longer lived with but still knew better than almost anyone else in the world. So, he said eventually, the reason I wanted to meet. The house. The practical matters that still bound us together. Our house, our finances, our legal untangling. I think we should sell it, I said. Too many memories. For both of us. And for Lily too, he nodded. I agree. I can call the realtor we used when we bought it. That sounds good. More details were discussed. Who would take which furniture? How to handle the joint accounts. When to tell Lily about selling her childhood home. The business of dismantling a life together. When we'd exhausted the practical topics, an awkward silence fell between us. I should get going, I said, gathering my purse. I'm meeting Rachel for lunch, Daniel nodded. How is she? Good, she's been amazing through all this. I'm glad. He hesitated. And how are you, Van? Really? I considered the question. How was I? 6 months ago, my life had imploded. I'd discovered my husband's affair, moved in with my sister, filed for divorce. I'd watched my daughter's pain and tried to help her through it while managing my own. I'd cried more than I thought possible. But I'd also started painting again, something I'd loved in college but had somehow lost along the way. I'd reconnected with old friends. I'd applied for a promotion at work and gotten it. I'd remembered who I was before I was part of a we. I'm okay, I said finally. Some days are harder than others. But I'm okay, he smiled, a genuine smile that reached his eyes. I'm glad. You deserve to be happy, Vanessa. As we said our goodbyes and walked in opposite directions out of the coffee shop, I thought about happiness. Was I happy? Not entirely, not yet. But I was something else, something that felt important. I was authentic. I was living in truth, not illusion. That night, as I was getting ready for bed in my small new apartment, my first time living alone since college, my phone chimed with a text. It was from Mark, a divorced dad I'd met in a support group Rachel had dragged me to. We'd been on 2 coffee dates, pleasant but careful, both of us carrying our respective baggage. There's a new exhibit at the art museum next weekend. The one you mentioned wanting to see. Would you like to go? I looked at the message for a long moment. 6 months ago, standing in room 1619 with my world falling apart around me, I couldn't have imagined being here. Couldn't have pictured myself considering a date with someone who wasn't Daniel. I typed my reply. I'd like that. As I set my phone down, I thought about that fateful email that had brought me to the Grand Meridian. Room 1619, booked for real love. The irony wasn't lost on me. In a roundabout way, that room had led me back to something real. Not love, not yet. But truth, authenticity, the chance to start again. I turned out the light and settled into bed, alone but not lonely. Tomorrow was a new day. And for the first time in a long time, I was looking forward to it. 1 year later, Mom, have you seen my blue sweater? Lily called from her bedroom. The one with the silver threads? Check the laundry basket, I called back, putting the finishing touches on my makeup. It was Lily's senior prom night, and our small apartment was a flurry of activity. Hair products covered the bathroom counter. Discarded outfit options lay strewn across her bed, and the living room had been transformed into a photography studio by Rachel, who'd appointed herself official prom photographer. Found it! Lily emerged from her room, the blue sweater in hand. I'm going to bring it in case it gets cold later. I smiled at my daughter, barely recognizing the poised young woman who stood before me in a silver dress that caught the light when she moved. When had my little girl grown up? While I wasn't looking, apparently. You look beautiful, I told her, my throat tight with emotion. Thanks, Mom. She twirled once, making the dress shimmer. Is Dad still coming over to see me off? He should be here any minute. As if on cue, the doorbell rang. Lily went to answer it, and I heard Daniel's voice exclaiming over how grown up she looked. The divorce had been finalized 6 months ago. The house had sold quickly, and we'd divided the proceeds. Daniel had moved to an apartment across town, not with Eliza, as it turned out, but alone. He was dating someone new now, a kindergarten teacher named Jenna, whom Lily liked. I was genuinely happy for him. I emerged from my bedroom to find Daniel standing in my living room, looking slightly out of place but smiling broadly at our daughter. Vanessa. He nodded in greeting. You look nice. Thanks, I said, smoothing the skirt of my own dress. I had plans later with Mark, who'd gone from coffee date to boyfriend over the past year. We were taking things slow, both of us wary of repeating past mistakes, but it was good. Real. The doorbell rang again. Lily's date, a boy named Connor whom we'd both vetted and approved. More exclamations, more photos, the giving of a corsage with fumbling teenage hands. We should go, Lily said eventually. We're meeting everyone for dinner before the dance. A flurry of hugs, last-minute advice, reminders about curfew. And then they were gone, leaving the three adults, me, Daniel, and Rachel, standing in my suddenly quiet living room. "Well," Rachel said, looking between us, "I should get going too. Got a hot date myself." She winked at me as she gathered her photography gear. "You kids play nice." After she left, Daniel and I stood in awkward silence. "Do you want some coffee?" I offered. "Or I have beer in the fridge." "Coffee would be great," he said. In the kitchen, as I measured grounds into the filter, I was acutely aware of Daniel moving around my living room, looking at the new life I'd built without him. "I like what you've done with the place," he said as I brought out 2 mugs. "It feels like you." "Thanks." I handed him his coffee, black with 1 sugar, the way he'd always taken it. "Some habits die hard. How's work?" "Good, busy." He took a sip. "I got the promotion." "Congratulations," I said sincerely. "You deserved it." Another silence fell between us, but it was more comfortable than before. We'd been through the worst together. Survived it. Found a new way to exist in each other's lives. Bound forever by our daughter, but no longer by marriage. "She seems happy," Daniel said eventually. "Lily, I mean," I nodded. "I think she is." The therapy helped. And seeing that we could both be okay apart. "Are you?" he asked quietly. "Okay?" I considered the question. The past 18 months had been the hardest of my life in many ways. But also, unexpectedly, some of the most rewarding. I'd discovered strengths I didn't know I had. I'd built a new life from the wreckage of my old one. "I am," I said. "Better than okay, actually," he smiled, a hint of sadness in his eyes. "I'm glad, Van. You know, despite everything, I never stopped caring about you." I know. And I did know. What had happened between us wasn't about lack of care, or even lack of love. It was about the slow drift that can happen in any relationship when you stop seeing each other clearly. When you stop being honest, with your partner, with yourself. "I want to apologize," he said suddenly. Again, properly, I shook my head. "You don't have to—" "I do," he insisted. "What I did, the affair, the lies, it was unforgivable. And I'll never stop being sorry for hurting you that way." I looked at him. This man I'd loved for so long, whom I'd built a life with, had a child with, whom I'd once thought I'd grow old with. There was a time when his apology would have meant everything to me. When I desperately needed to hear it. But now, sitting in my own apartment with my new life humming contentedly around me, I realized something important. I had already forgiven him. Not for his sake, but for my own. Because holding on to anger and hurt was like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. "I forgive you," I said simply. "We both made mistakes. Different ones, but still." He looked startled, then relieved. "Thank you." We sipped our coffee in companionable silence for a while. Then Daniel checked his watch. "I should get going," he said. I told Jenna I'd pick her up at 7. I walked him to the door. Before he left, he turned to me one last time. "You know, it's funny," he said. "That night at the Grand Meridian, when everything fell apart, in a way, it was the best thing that could have happened to us." I raised an eyebrow. "That's a generous interpretation," he shrugged. "Think about it. We were both living lies, going through the motions. Neither of us was happy, but we were too afraid to admit it." He met my eyes. "Now look at us. You're painting again. I'm actually enjoying my work for the first time in years. Lily's thriving. We're all more ourselves." As I closed the door behind him, I thought about what he'd said. Was he right? Had the destruction of our marriage been a strange kind of salvation for us both? I didn't have a clear answer. But I did know that standing in room 1619 that rainy night, reading those emails about real love, I couldn't have imagined being where I was now. Couldn't have pictured this new life that had emerged from the ashes of my old one. Later that evening, as Mark and I walked hand in hand along the river after dinner, he asked me what I was thinking about. "Just life," I said. "How you never know where it's going to take you." He squeezed my hand. "That's what makes it interesting." I smiled up at him. This kind, thoughtful man who'd come into my life unexpectedly. Who saw me clearly and valued what he saw. Who knew my history and didn't judge me for it. You know what? I said. You're absolutely right. As we continued our walk under the stars, I thought about the email that had changed everything. Room 1619, booked for real love. Daniel had been looking for real love in that hotel room. So had I, in a different way, searching for the truth no matter how painful. We'd both found it, eventually. Not where or how we expected, but real nonetheless. And in the end, that's all any of us can ask for.
And that wraps up today's story. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and let's see how far these stories reach. If this story moved you or gave you chills, give it a like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. One last thing, rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.